is I've had the pleasure and privilege of being the president of the AANS and currently the president of the Scoliosis Research Society. Have involved in several study groups such as the ISSG. I worked with SIG for the AO Knowledge Forum, and I've seen a lot of things from a lot of different areas and have had some information about what things work and don't work. And again, there is a huge yin and yang about what people think they want, but how much they're willing to spend and how much effort they're willing to put into doing data collection. So I'm just trying to, I guess I have to click it. Yeah, here, I got it.
That button right there.
Yep, got it. Thank you. So these are my disclosures. None of them are really applicable except for some research funding that has gone through the ISSG Foundation. So what's happening is, this whole registry thing is something that is really widespread, and the question about what works and what we really want to collect and how much effort we want to put into it is something that is an area of controversy. This is a nice article from Alex Vaquero that looked at certain registries that had worked at least to some degree, and he goes and compares the AANS QOD effort. He does the Swedish spine registry effort, and he had done a registry effort that was run through Vanderbilt and discussed it. And what happens is there are a lot of really good intentions when we look at registry efforts. And this is Spine Tango, and this was Eurospine's major registry effort. And it was very, very ambitious. This is kind of what they talk about, this different central module and what goes on. But this was a recent publication where that there were almost 76,000 Spine Tango forms put in. And when they looked at their study cohort, you can see there are 248, 149, and 739 patients that churn through these tens of thousands of forms put in where they could fully analyze the data. And if you have something where you're having 75,000 forms that are submitted and you're having 248 patients at the end of it, there is something wrong with that type of planning. This is an AO effort that they had put through, and you can see here that there are 16.4 million completed outcomes questionnaires that the AO has accumulated. And I would go on to say, there's some individual work, for example, with the AO Knowledge Forum, which were prospective studies, but of these 16 million forms, I just don't see that level of knowledge has been gleaned from the accumulation of these 16 million forms. So what's happening is, I was involved in the neurosurgery AANS board, and what had happened was there was some feeling, and this was work principally forwarded by Bob Harbaugh and Tony Asher, and there was a feeling that neurosurgery should be the first specialty to have a specialty-wide registry effort to be put into place. And so the initial effort of that was something called QOD. And as you're going to see here in a second, this was the quality and outcomes database, and this subsequently has spread to radiosurgery. It's spread to the treatment of functional outcomes for Parkinson's disease. It's spread within neurosurgery for the treatment of brain tumors. But the principal thing for this was for spine. So it started out in its initial form with 5 academic centers that started gathering data. And what happened was it was found very rapidly, without having a study coordinator in place, someone calling, and even though this was something where you could call after surgery and get the patient-reported outcomes data, surgeons are just not very good filling out what exactly they did on forms, and it was found that overall that this was costing most places that were effectively gathering data in the 70 to 80, 90 to 90% range for the patients getting the outcome data was costing somewhere around $175,000 a center, okay? And these, if you're in private practice, sometimes your health system would pay for that, and sometimes it's done. But what happened is the costs were escalating. And what's happening is that people wanted more and more detailed data, and because of that, it was my belief and some others that this was a non-sustainable pathway. That basically that how many centers are going to spend $250,000 to gain this data, and what was going to be done. And there were a few centers who were very had a lot of forethought and used this for contract negotiations, used it for marketing and advertisement. But what happens, the vast majority of centers got very little of direct, tangible benefit for the investment. So this is just describing some things. This is a paper that we wrote about the initial QOD experience. And what the realization was, at least by me, was that this was not sustainable. At that time, Steve and others had been forwarding the concept of going into a partnership with the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons to have at least a spine specialty-wide registry effort. And because of the work that had been done, as you'd heard earlier, through the joint replacement registry, the potential to have at least a large component of this eventually become automated came into place, that you weren't going to need to spend 50, 75, 100,000, 500,000 on an effort. So this basically this synergistic collaboration started, and you saw this picture from Steve. This was the leaders of the AANS and the Orthopedic Academy coming together to sign the commitment agreement to make this done. And you've seen that the number of centers is increasing. And one of the things which is done, and probably the biggest challenge, has been to go and work different solutions to extract data easily and readily through the electronic medical record. And these are some middleware solutions that have been brought into place to make this happen. But I do feel over the next several years this is going to come into fruition. And again, this is going to allow us to have better ability to assess what we do, including cost data. And how the QOD data has been used recently was that there were a lot of different individual state medical insurance hurdles related to the performance of fusion for spondylolisthesis. As you guys recall, there was a controversy that was from some publications from New England Journal of Medicine, where they felt that no fusion was the outcomes were as good or better than those patients who had fusions. And this is the fact is, can we use registry data to do this? These were some people who took the lead from using the QOD data, and there have been a number of different publications looking at being able to do a deep dive, showing that there is some benefit from fusion related to it across the spectrum of patients that have been treated. So there's going to be a sort of a cervical deep dive for cervical myelopathy. There's going to be a high-grade spondylolisthesis deep dive. And this has led to some other projects, including the use of machine learning. And this goes and shows just some of the publications over the last 6 months that have come from the QOD data. The QOD data wasn't primarily a research database. It was primarily to be used for benchmarking and quality improvement. And again, this is just showing some other things that are going on. So what's happening is, I think that the ASR really has an opportunity to be able to do an analysis of degenerative conditions for people in the United States. One of the problems is what works for the ASR has been some favorable rulings by the U.S. Federal government that this is a QI project. It's not something that requires IRB approval. But the health laws and the patient privacy laws throughout the world are far different as you go from country to country. And one of the challenges for the Scoliosis Research Society is these differences in patient privacy and data transfer information. And that, if you talk to some of the leaders from Spine Tango and the leaders from the AO, this has been a major obstacle for having worldwide different registries. So as we move forward, and something's supposed to have popped up, it's supposed to be one thing followed by the other. But what's happening is there's been a recent survey by the membership of the Scoliosis Research Society, and the number one thing that's requested by the members is an ability to have registry data. And this is through, they'd like the ability to benchmark, they'd like to be able to do quality assurance to improve each individual surgeon's data. The SRS has a history of requiring morbidity and mortality submission, and there's been some question over the years whether the quality of this has drifted and whether we're getting really good morbidity and mortality data, or if it's something that's done post hoc a year after the cases were done, and whether there's cases missing and that are not being captured with that. There is a strong desire for early career surgeons to find some type of mechanism to be able to go and be able to collaborate with other early career surgeons to be able to go do it. And as Shay could probably explain to you, things like the harm study group and the ISSG are enormously costly. The AO project, the Scoliosis project, was millions and millions of dollars, and suddenly trying to do that in the backs of an organization like the Scoliosis Research Society is not just possible. So right now, as usual, as a leader, and you're not smart enough personally to figure out how to go and best deal with this problem, what I did was formed a task force that includes Justin Smith, Shay Bess, and others who are going to look at this, and this is called the Performance and Outcomes Task Force. And some of the preliminary data, we've begun to sort of formulate what at least an initial step may look like. And so this is going to be Shay Bess's new iPhone a year from now. And if you look at the corner, there's going to be an icon. And what we envision happening is it's going to ask something like, you push the icon and it says, how many surgeries are you going to do next week? And then it'll ask you to list what the surgeries were, and you'll get a prompt to say, after you do one of the surgeries on Monday, did you have any complications with that? What were the complications? And you'll get another prompt 2 weeks after the surgery saying, did you have any perioperative complications? What were they? And then, 6 months or a year, you'll get another prompt saying, remember this patient that you did on the 4th of October? How did the patient end up doing, and were there any delayed complications? And what's happening is, with this, what we'd like to do is to be able to introduce this, and there's some feeling through the attorneys, as a morbidity and mortality thing, and being able to go and compare and benchmark, at least as far as that component, that can be done without having a lot of hurdles from the different patient privacy initiatives. And what we'll do is we get this rolled out through the society, through the SRS, then there's going to be the opportunity to build upon that. It may be country by country. It may be groups of people that do something which requires IRB approval. But we want to sort of walk before we run. So basically, this is what but the societal vision is probably my societal vision. I don't know, I'll give a little proviso that not everybody agrees with what my views are, but at least with the AA and S, I'd kind of bludgeoned them into submission, and we got it accomplished. And my belief is between some of the former presidents, including Steve Glassman and Dave Pauly and people like Shay, Justin, and myself will be able to move this forward. And so that's what, when Shay asked me about what we're doing from a societal perspective, that's giving everybody at least a little peek behind the curtains. Thank you.